back to another PCPS Light episode while we're busy planning and recording our episodes for season 17. Just as a reminder, instead of encores, we're bringing you light and refreshing off-the-cuff conversations with half the calories and a lemony twist, which means no research, no editing, no clips, just us, uninformed, unprepared, and unedited.
You've been warned.
The raw and the real. That's what you're getting.
This summer, this is our topic for the day. This summer marks the 50th anniversary of the release of the movie that gave a name to the phenomenon of people lining up around the block to get into a movie theater, aka busting the block, aka blockbuster. So the movie that coined the term blockbuster is celebrating 50 years this summer. We, of course, are talking about the movie Jaws, released in 1975. This is the movie that made Gen Xers afraid to swim, not just in the ocean, but also in lakes and neighborhood swimming pools. So, and one time we had a commenter who said she hadn't been in the ocean since 1975.
Oh, no.
Remember that? It was in our Blockbuster episode. And she's like, yeah, not since 1975. I'll go to my knees, but that's it. Okay, so in celebration of the 50th anniversary, the three of us just watched the documentary called Jaws at 50, The Definitive Inside Story. And if you haven't seen this yet, it is totally worth it. Because nobody knew, none of us knew in 1975 how historic this movie would be or what it represented. And in case you didn't know, you will have the opportunity to celebrate the movie's 50th anniversary by seeing it on the big screen once again when the movie is released into theaters for Labor Day weekend, and I just got my tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
We just watched it at home, I would think maybe in June, and I kind of wish I wouldn't have. We're going to go see it in the theater as well, but I feel like, because you have to. How can you
have
not,
to.
right?
Big screen.
Right.
But
Big
I kind of
shark.
wish I wouldn't have, because I hadn't seen, when I watched it in June, I hadn't seen it in decades. And I kind of wish I would have waited, but I'm still excited to go see it again.
Okay,
Well,
I forgot to
there's-
set our timer. Hold on one second. Don't speak, Carolyn. Wait. Because, these light episodes, we have to stop talking at a certain point when this alarm goes off. So there it is.
Yeah.
I just said it.
Like
Speak,
in
Carolyn.
mid-sentence.
Yeah, we
you
just
have to
stop.
That's right. We're just
Yep.
going to stop.
I would love to just circle back to what you said, Kristen, about how, in 1975, none of us knew how big this movie was going to be. And I would like to point out that if you watch this documentary, someone who also did not know how big this movie was going to be, Steven Spielberg.
Right. Exactly.
And
In
I
fact,
mean gobsmacked at how big this movie, because you're going to learn how behind schedule they were, how that damn shark never worked, how it was the conditions, the cold water, all this. It was almost like everything was going against him.
Yeah.
When he was like, I want to direct this movie. After
He thought it was going to
novel.
ruin his career.
Right.
That was one of the
People
major
told him
themes
it
of the documentary
would.
was that this was going to be the end for Steven Spielberg because he did it so poorly. He managed it so poorly. It was so over budget. And would it even be good? And would anybody want to go see it? And he actually suffered some legit PTSD after and panic disorder after the movie was finished because he just thought he was over.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even with people telling him that and almost like suggesting perhaps he throw in the towel, he was going to see this through no matter what. It's like he didn't even, I'm sure he cared, but the fact that it might derail his career or end it, that was not a factor in him saying, I'm going to keep doing this. I have to see this through to the end.
You have a job to do and let's take care of it. And in order to talk about the difficulty of the movie, we need to talk about the setting because the setting is the reason that this movie was so difficult to film. So in the movie, it is a fictional town called Amity on a little island off of the East Coast somewhere. The filming location was actually Martha's Vineyard. And so if you go, and I've been to Martha's Vineyard and I didn't know any of this, but there's some very famous locations on Martha's Vineyard that you can go to today that they very proudly claim as this is the Jaws Bridge. And I guess it's like a rite of passage to jump off the Jaws Bridge.
Well, especially this summer.
Yes.
They've gone all out
They've gone
with the
all
Jaws
out.
merch, the Jaws signs.
And
everything.
so what was difficult about the filming was filming on water, because anytime you do something on water, it makes it exponentially more difficult because you can't hold a camera still when you're floating on the water. You can't even keep a boat in the same place when you're floating on the water. Things drift. Then, of course, you have weather, you have storms, and it was just like and everybody, they're showing like these camera people and they're like blue in the face and they're shaking and the temperatures. Remember, you might have started filming when it was warm. By the time you were done, it's November and you're on the ocean, and it was just a nightmare. But the other thing that was so interesting to me about Martha's Vineyard is that they only hired 8 Hollywood actors for the film. Everybody else in the film, and you'll see there are tons of people. There are hundreds and hundreds, even major roles. Those are all locals. Those are all local Martha's Vineyard people. Even like the little boy that gets eaten on the beach, that is a little boy from Martha's Vineyard. And
he gets eaten in the water.
Yes, that's true. And his mom's got the big floppy hat on. She's like, where's little boy? Where's little boy?
Well, and he talks about how cold it was in there.
Yeah. And most of those people, if you're an island person, you probably will remain an island person. And so all of those children that are running around on the beach, they're all speaking to the documentary filmmakers as grown-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Of their experience.
And they're all about our age.
Yes, they are.
They are. The ones that were children are.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And I'll say too, there's kind of that old adage, like, you don't make a movie with like kids or pets or something.
Yeah.
Let's add mechanical sharks to that because they take quite a bit of time in this documentary, not only showing how the shark was created, which is super cool, but basically it just never worked. Richard Dreyfuss says he just always remembers just like, shark's not working. And then all of a sudden it would be like, and they would just be waiting, and sometimes for days. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it would be like, the shark's working. The shark's working.
It's like 3 in the morning.
Everybody get to set. But yeah, I think that going back to Steven Spielberg's PTSD, which was very legitimate, he says for years he had dreams where he was still on that boat.
Oh my God.
Still on that island. And I would like to say probably still working with that damn shark that just worked about 20% of the time.
They had shark mechanics the way you would have car mechanics at I'm trying to think of a car oriented thing. A car race? What do they call car races?
Oh, like your pit crew?
Thank you. Yes. They had a pit crew for the shark.
But it is so primitive and so 1975.
Yeah.
Say the shark is in the water and they're on a little floating raft with their little like joysticks, like you're working a little remote control car from 1975. Think about how it would be done today.
Oh, they wouldn't have even made a shark.
I wonder if Steven Spielberg thinks about that today, like how different this would be. But yeah, I was super impressed, to Carolyn's point earlier about Spielberg's, the dedication and the belief he had when even through all of these hardships, the weather, the shark, right? The delays, the pressure from, the producers basically of how much more money this is costing. He's already getting negative press. This isn't going to be a good movie. It's already delayed. It is such a testament to the reason he's as successful as he is today. If this was the dedication and the belief he had straight out of the gate. Now, he had that other movie about that truck. Remember that highway?
Made for TV movie, Duel. Yeah, so this is his second
was his
first feature.
First feature, but like if this was the type of character and the type of work and belief in his craft and belief in his dream and his vision that he had, it's no wonder he's gone on to be one of the most successful directors alive and dead. One day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I wanted to your point, Kristen, about using all the locals and also to the point of if it was made today, it would be so different. It would not have, there was something about it that made it seem almost like I don't want to call it a documentary, but it just had this real feel. Like it could have been somebody's, 8mm camera that they were taking all of this video in. There was just enough, amateurness in a way in terms of the people that it felt so believable. If it had been some polished actresses and actors, saying some of these lines, especially the beachgoers and the townspeople, it just would not have had the same effect. This was this could have been us on a vacation.
Agree. And I never thought about that. It's true. All of like the kids who are on the, and when I say kids, I mean like the teenagers who are running out they're having the bonfire and they're going to run and go swimming. The way they were talking was not scripted. and they just seemed like normal kids. And it has sort of that patina of 1975, like everything's a little yellow or a little orange. Everybody's clothing is a little orange.
Well, yeah, think about all the suits and the dresses of the adults walking around town or in that meeting. And like Kristen said earlier, listeners, these were all actual islanders, which means not that you vacation there, not that you come every summer. You have to be there. You have to be like born there and live there your whole life. But think about all their clothing. It was the mustards and the avocado greens and the oranges, but it's all just kind of faded.
Yeah.
Just a little.
A little faded. Yeah.
Just a little
faded. And
faded.
even the shark, I really loved the coverage, so much coverage to the shark because, like you said, the looming issue about the shark is that today they wouldn't have even made a shark. They would have animated a shark. It would have been CGI. It would have, and I was so grateful for all those problems they had with that damn shark so that we got the benefit of seeing an actual physical, tangible creature, as mechanical as it was, crashing onto the bow of that boat.
Could you guys believe that? And this is a little bit of a spoiler, not really, but could you believe that shark, like decades later, was just like gonna get thrown out?
I know. My
and the
heart
guy
was in
bought
my
it.
throat.
The guy bought it and like restored it. And when he's like, we found it in like a warehouse, like all crumbly and like about to be
that was bizarre.
Thrown out. I was like, how is that not immortalized
in
somewhere?
The Smithsonian? That should be in the Smithsonian.
Or in Martha's Vineyard. It could be like they're up on a big, like a park with it. Oh, that'd be kind of scary for little kids.
Speaking of scary, but I just wanted to say, we're talking all about the shark and how mechanical it was and how large it was, all these things, but they talk specifically and they interview other filmmakers during this documentary, so you really get people that are current day filmmakers like Jordan Peele, and he talks about the initial scene in the movie. It's one of the scariest, if not the scariest to me.
Oh my
and
God,
you don't ever see the shark. The shark is not even part of that. And it just, again, lends itself to what great directors these are. I mean, the things that they were pointing out when you were listening to these famous filmmakers like James Cameron, and it was so interesting because I saw it when they were talking about it, but never think about it when I'm watching a movie.
Oh, for sure.
From a technical point of view, from like an artistic and technical point of view. Yeah.
Well, and they're talking, like George Lucas, and Carolyn, like Carolyn just said, James Cameron, Jordan Peele, they are basically praising Spielberg's directing choices for some of these movie moments that have stuck with all of us forever, for decades, that he made that choice. And he was 27, 29?
27.
And so again, goes back to the brilliance of Steven Spielberg. I don't think any of us have to, convince anyone else of his brilliance. But when you think he was doing all this stuff on his first movie, when your first movie out of the gate like that becomes this generational, one of the...
A teaching tool?
Just one of the greatest movies of all time, I would say. Can we talk about that for just a minute? Like, and all our episodes, listeners, you guys probably know this, but we always like to connect whatever we're talking to our own childhood experiences. And we did a little bit with this movie in our summer blockbusters, but I want to take us all back to 1975 just for a second. We're all at different ages. Summer of 75, I'm 6, Kristen's 7. Carolyn, you're 10?
Yeah.
So what are your memories? Because when I think back, I asked my husband this after we watched the documentary the other night. I said, honestly, is there a more iconic piece of pop culture, if we're talking media, from the 1970s than Jaws and Star Wars? Such a powerful piece of pop culture. The image, the movie poster, the woman swimming with the shark underneath her. But at age 7. How old was I? Wait, how old was I? 6. I was 6. I forgot again. I didn't see it, but I was so aware. I feel like someone in my family read the book, and it has to have been my sister because my mom wouldn't have. But I remember the book being in our house.
Your sister could not have read it because she's my age.
At 10, but I can't imagine my mom. And it doesn't have to be in 70. I'm not talking about in 75. I might have remembered the book being in my house later, but I remember that book. But as far as memories of it, I remember Jaws. I remember then when the little game came out, and I remember that image, the posters, people having it on their T-shirts. I did not personally see it at age 6. I saw it probably a year or two later. I don't know how long. But what are your guys' memories of how did the phenomenon in 1975 affect you?
Well, and that's kind of the beauty of the 70s is you didn't have to see it to be part of the phenomenon,
True.
Which is different from right now. When something became a part of the culture, it was everywhere. It was on Saturday Night Live, and you saw the trailers on TV. There were everybody, like you said, on the shirts, the poster and everything. It was on variety shows. So, and you knew all the iconic moments maybe from watching Entertainment Tonight, or we didn't have Entertainment Tonight, but whatever show it was, we all knew it. And then even if you didn't see it, maybe your parents went to see it, or your babysitter went to see it, and people would tell you about it. And so it seeps. I didn't see it I don't think I saw it until I was an adult. And yet it's part of my experience.
Think about how many times you drove past a movie theater in the 70s and the 80s, and you saw all the movies listed. Yes. I can see it in the red, on the all white caps. Marquee, but the Jaws, up there, and then maybe something else was underneath it. Yeah.
Well,
what about you, Carolyn?
I wasn't allowed to see it, I'm sure, so I did not see the movie. But we did have the book, and I think I talk about this in our Blockbuster episode, because if you remember, we just talked about the opening scene of the movie, which is also kind of the opening scene of the book, where it is a young girl who is skinny dipping, you guys. And in the book, it gives you a little more detail because you don't have the visual. And I could see the paperback, and I would go and sneak it off the shelf, and I would just go look for those words like nipples or penis or whatever. And so the book is almost the thing that is more indelible in my memory than the movie is. And then I loved in the documentary, they gave a good little nod to the book.
Oh, and it's a big part of it.
Yes. And I think that was the most interesting part of it to me, because I could relate to that a little bit of when they showed the cover of it, and how he struggled with what to call it. I mean, you talk about titles of things they'd share in the documentary for months, and he had pages and pages and pages of possible titles, and then he couldn't come up with one, and it's time to come to one, and his publisher's asking him, and he said, well, the only one that there's been any kind of agreement on is Jaws. And there it was. And so that to me was super interesting.
And the others were like Leviathan or something.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something with an M. I can't remember what it was, but it was always dumb.
Yeah, like Maelstrom or something.
Fun fact.
Maelstrom.
Yeah. That's right. A fun fact is a few months ago, when Brian and I were in Austin, we went to the Lyndon B. Johnson Presidential Library, and there was a huge Jaws, display, or not display, but
at the Lyndon
exhibit.
B. Johnson
exhibit. And so I'm like, what is going on? Why Jaws? But that was, I'll be quite honest with you, I was like, that's the first thing, we're looking at the little map, and the little docent's like, and then the Jaws exhibit is up on, floor 3. And I was like, we're going to that one first. And it was very cool. Lots of stuff from the movie, lots of wetsuits and stuff from the movie. And you're like, where's the connection? The writer of the book was a speechwriter for Lyndon B. Johnson.
No way.
And they didn't mention that in the.
They didn't.
So you see his typewriter, and you see in the exhibit, there were some of the first drafts of the book.
Wow. One of the things that I found the most interesting and the most telling in a way was Peter Benchley is sharing, the book's popularity, and when they're getting ready to, it was maybe the paperback edition, put it out. He had received an unlikely and very interesting quote from someone who really enjoyed the book. And this was Fidel Castro.
Oh, jeez.
And Fidel Castro's quote was very on point, particularly for me now as watching this all as an adult, because according to Fidel Castro, he said that this book was, and hold on, here we go. He said it was a marvelous metaphor about the corruption of capitalism. Because if you remember, the underlying kind of what makes this so dramatic is that the powers that be don't want the word to get out that there's this shark in the waters. So they want to play it down, or just basically not tell anyone. So the beaches will stay full and people will be there, the tourism dollars, whatever. And so because of that decision, people are going into the water. No one's telling them how careful they should be. And we see the effects of that. And Fidel Castro saw this as basically it was to keep the markets going and everything people were willing to risk human life. And it just, there's maybe some moments now in our current history where you could say, or our current moments, that we are looking at the money and the dollars more than we are at the human beings.
Yeah.
And I think probably the book might give us a little bit more of that storyline than the movie did. But there would be no movie if it wasn't for that plot point that they're not telling people how unsafe things are because they want to bring in the dough. And hence we have this carnage.
Yeah. It makes me want to read the book. It really does. And
It's
the same. We've talked about this before. Those old, we don't have mass market paperbacks anymore. Those big bricks.
Oh, you can smell it.
Yes. It's like a small, tiny book that's super thick and the pages were so thin. Yeah. It's the original
like
beach
newspaper.
Read. Yeah.
Newspaper.
It was
Jaws. Jaws is a great
kind of warped.
At the beach.
My mom would read them at the beach and at the pool. And so they'd get fatter, because they'd absorb the humidity, which we had a ton of in Texas. And so they'd sit kind of warped in places. And
they have them at Safeway here in Denver. Like when I leave Safeway, there's a big magazine rack and it's tons of those paperbacks, like the Nora Roberts and the, Tom Clancy's. But I think it's so funny because I'm like, who leaves Safeway? And they're like, you know what I need? Because one of these books I can't actually read.
I think that's how it used to go. I think that's where a lot of people used to get their books.
On the spinny thing.
On the spinners.
Yeah, I loved it. Yes.
I want to go back to that opening scene, which that Jordan Peele moment really spoke to me, Carolyn. This person who is our age saying that was what taught me how to make a horror movie. You make people afraid by not showing them the monster. Don't show them the monster. You just imply the monster. And so if you recall, the girl goes in skinny dipping and then there's a jerk and she gets violently jerked. And then she's like, what? And then jerk. And so we get to see in the documentary how they do the jerks.
I love this kind of stuff.
It's so good. She's basically hooked into a harness with people pulling on ropes in various different directions. And then they had to choreograph when to jerk, and they had to pull her under. So both this girl, both the skinny dipper and the little boy on the beach who also gets killed at the beach, and he's much younger. He's like 9.
In the water.
In the water. Yeah, sorry. At the beach in the water. They start
he's
out
not
on
a
the
land
beach,
shark.
and then they go,
Land shark.
Land shark.
Candy shark.
So they have to be pulled under. It's almost like they have to give their consent.
Sure.
All right, you're going to, because that would be so terrifying. Pull me under the water.
Give them oxygen under.
Oh, God.
If anybody put a mask under me, if I was already underwater, I would be like, well, I'm going to be breathing in water. Like how, because the little boy, you're right. He said they pulled him and then they would pop him up and then pull him back down and pop him up.
So scary. As a child, I never would have consented to that. I'd be like, I'll be leaving now.
Yeah,
you can find somebody else to do
consent
this.
As an adult. I still don't quite understand snorkeling. Like when people go, I still have a fear like I won't know where I am and I'll go a little bit too deep and then I'll suck in all this water.
Yes.
I know they'll teach you not to, but that's kind of what I think. So, but again, the movie, if it was like all CGI'd or, the actors had those little dots all on them. I don't know, is that what CGI is when you watch how movies are made today? And, they made all the jerky stuff just not real. Like it didn't actually happen. There's just something to her face and stuff when it's really, truly happening to you.
It's more, it's an IRL experience, which is what is scary. Like this could actually happen. That is scary. When everything is fantasy, I'm not scared.
Yeah.
It's not even a horror movie.
It couldn't even happen.
No.
But one of the things I did find interesting, and I guess probably because we were so young, I just always thought that sharks were always like super scary and we were always aware of them and we're always looking out for the fin, and our parents did when they were kids. But really, it was Jaws the movie that put sharks on the map in terms of making them this kind of pop culture-y,
pariah.
Keep your eyes out.
Yes, a pop culture pariah.
I love that. And sadly, what we as humans, what some evil ones did in terms of just going out hunting basically sharks so they could bring them in and people would just stare at them on the beach, or they'd have them hanging up, where that wasn't a thing before. Like the shark population really went way, way down because of this movie, which didn't really ever think about that that could be a consequence of this movie.
And was it Peter Benchley and his wife who were actually the ones who were, I'm trying to figure out who the characters in the the people speaking in the documentary, but I feel like it was Peter Benchley and his wife who were calling this out as a dilemma. Like, what are we going to do?
I think it was the shark people.
It was
that
like
had
the
made
shark, the oceanographers and the shark experts
who had made that first movie.
There was a statement one of them made that I just loved. I wish I'd have written it down, but it was basically how everybody is like, oh, let's go kill the sharks because they're killing the people. When what you have to remember is we're the ones in their habitats.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? Right. And so it's really sad. And sharks are needed. I mean, it's a circle of life, and it keeps the ocean, it keeps everything moving the way it's supposed to in the ocean.
It's like mosquitoes. You can't get rid of mosquitoes, people. You can't get rid of bats. It's an ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. I love behind the scenes facts and tidbits and gossip, basically. I love the Robert Shaw who plays Quint. How he has that great monologue in the boat about the war. That was fascinating too. So listeners are like,
know that either.
You guys have to if listeners haven't watched it, you guys have to watch the documentary. But if you're familiar with the movie, Quint has a big monologue about why he has this vendetta against the shark, and it has to do with being in the war and a lot of his, his friends, his buddies that were killed by sharks. And
in the sinking of a ship, like
in
not
the sinking
randomly.
of a ship.
Yeah, there was a ship that sunk and they all got eaten by sharks.
But then there's a behind the scenes about how he needed to he asked Steven Spielberg if he could have a little drink before that scene was shot so that
because he's supposed to be drunk, right?
He's supposed to be drunk, and so he wants it to be believable. But also, I think because he wanted the courage to, have this scene, and shows up and he's like so drunk that he couldn't even do it. But then he comes back the next day and nails it. So they actually say, Steven Spielberg says that is a scene he could watch over and over and over again in this movie. And it is a powerful scene. The three of them.
It has everything to do with sharks, but it doesn't include any of, it doesn't include Jaws. It doesn't include those scenes. It's emotional and edge of your seat and human, I think, which was really a fun part. Not a fun part, but there's more to this movie than just a shark eating people that I think as an adult, I would pick up on more so than I would have when I was a kid. But I want to talk about that really fast, about the whole kid aspect. So I was 10 and I am old Gen X. Like that's the first year of Gen X. And of course I was not seeing it. And I'm sure people a lot younger saw it, but for the most part, it's an adult-ish movie. There's kind of some nudity and there's obviously blood and all of that. But then the merchandising of it, which obviously came after, because they didn't have any idea like they would now, where they would pre-pump us with all the stuff half the time before the movie comes out. This was all after the fact. And, they had the Halloween costumes. And I think at one point, this little girl in the documentary is reading a book, and I think it's a golden book. I think that the spine of the book is like a golden book spine. And I was just thinking the marketing to little kids, this is a scary, scary movie. It is not kid appropriate at all. And the games and again, the marketing of it and the capitalism of what they did to this movie was kind of interesting. It's like,
I wonder if there was, there's another movie we'll be talking about later where there are two different versions. I wonder, was there a TV version of Jaws that wasn't as scary?
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think a TV one maybe came out many years later.
Yeah.
Like what I remember from my little growing up and finding out stuff from my mom is that there were so many years that before a movie could be put on TV, it some time had to elapse and then it could be edited and put on TV. So I'm sure there was a time when it got put on TV, but that was way after this initial Halloween costume, game, golden book. It's just amazing.
Well, little figures too. We have a social media post coming out this week that will show some of the merch. The game we all know where you can pull the little, the life preserver out or the piece of the boat or, out of the shark's mouth. But, there were action figures as well as some of the other things.
And
so they definitely were toys.
Before, you didn't have to see the movie, like Kristen, you said. This was, and I'm going to quote, I don't know who it was in the documentary, but I loved this term. They called it a generational phenomenon. So something that touched all the generations in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know that I can think of the last thing that everybody, no matter your age, was so gung-ho on.
Or at least had knowledge of. right? That you knew what, I mean, I guess we could say Taylor Swift is the only thing that everybody knows about.
Things that could cross all of that. But, my grandmother probably read the book, I'm sure saw the movie. And then I could have turned around and had the Halloween costume. And, my mom's reading the book. And it's just, it was legit entertainment for across the board generationally, where I'm not sure my grandmother would have thought Taylor Swift was great, but this all had something for everybody.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's more than just knowledge of it. Like it could be entertainment for all of those people. Old people are going to go see Jaws, and apparently children are going to go see Jaws too.
We have in our Blockbuster episode, we have listener stories. Wasn't it someone saw it when they were so little?
Oh,
and
when
the head
5.
pops out. Yeah, when the head pops out, their candy like rolled down the aisle and you just kept hearing it going clunk, 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 clunk. Like, or they dropped all their lemon heads or something and they all went rolling down the aisle. So like I think I said a couple weeks ago in these episodes, since we're not doing encores, we definitely always we've got an episode for that.
Yeah, right.
So this week, the related episode definitely would be our summer blockbuster episode, which is full of fun stories from Jaws and lots of other summer blockbusters throughout the 70s and 80s. Pretty much every year.
Started it. Yeah. Jaws started it. So obviously, we're excited about this documentary. We highly recommend it. I'm trying to decide if it's smart to watch the documentary before going to see it on the big screen, because there is so much that you could learn, like Quint's speech. You learn background information that would it gives more gravitas to some of the things that you're seeing on the screen. I'm going to see it with people, and one of the people has not seen it before ever in her entire life, and so I'm trying to decide if I tell her to watch the doc first.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think after.
You think after? Okay.
Yeah, because you kind of don't want to see how the sausage is made,
Oh, maybe. Okay, yeah, you might be right.
Because then you're watching it and you're going, oh, somebody was, had her in a harness underneath the water and pulling her back and forth,
I think you're right. I think watch the doc after to inform yourself about what you just experienced. And then, of course, you'll want to rent it again and you'll see it on the small screen.
And I was going to say, nowadays we can do that. Before, when it was at the movie theater, you'd have to go pay again at the movies and go see it.
Shot.
Now she can immediately, after she watches the doc, go and find it and stream it. So.
Needless to say, this has become an iconic summertime movie. This is one of the movies that they'll show at the park, right? There's always a showing of Jaws in the summertime. It's become a yearly seasonal event, and I'm super excited to see it over Labor Day weekend. I think we're wrapping it up. You guys, that was a great conversation.
It was.
It was very light and refreshing.
So refreshing.
So refreshing.
Let's go to the beach.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us for PCPS Light today. We hope it quenches your thirst without being too filling. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for another uninformed, unprepared, and unedited conversation off the top of our heads. God help us. In the meantime, let's raise our glasses for a toast, courtesy of the Cast of Three's company, to good times.
2 happy days.
To Little House on the Prairie.
Cheers,
y'all. Cheers.
The information, opinions, and comments expressed on the Pop Culture Preservation Society podcast belong solely to Carolyn, the Crushologist, and Hello Newman, and are in no way representative of our employers or affiliates. And though we truly believe we are always right, there's always a first time. The PCPS is written, produced, and recorded in Minneapolis, Minnesota, home of the fictional WJM Studios and our beloved Mary Richards. Nanu Nanu, keep on truckin', and may the force be with you.